Hello, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us today for this Alchemco webinar series. Today we have Jeff Poulioette here talking a little bit more about bridge preservation.
Okay, first of all, I'm a retired engineer from Florida Department of Transportation. I've been working for Alchemco for the last year and a half, and my presentation today is plan to extend service life of bridges using successive applications of BridgeDECK. Okay, I'm gonna some of the stuff most of the stuff I know you know, but I want to go through it with you a little bit. So set the stage for what I'm talking about. BridgeDECK waterproofing agent lasts 25 years. Protector Plus lasts 20 years, and Protector will last 15 years. Now, it could last a lot more than that, but I picked that because that's where the warranties will basically have a limited warranty for that service life. And I think it's going to be a lot more practically in the field. So let's talk about the National Bridge Inventory NBI ratings. This is a rating system that has been adopted by Federal Highway Administration. And if you see, they got three colors over there. They got green, they got yellow, they got red. And I want to tell you that the National Bridge Inventory ratings are determined at the time the bridge is inspected. There are several components of a bridge that basically have independent NBI ratings, and the lowest component is what determines the overall condition of the bridge. So it's important to have all your components in good condition. Most bridge inspections are performed on 2 to 4 year intervals. As agents, a lot of bridges are on 2 year intervals because an agency has to go and request 4 years or higher and have a good plan on what type of bridge they have and the condition before they can go to an increased interval. BridgeDECK NBIs are defined as follows by Federal Highway Administration. NBI 9, 8, and 7 are considered to be in good condition. NBI 6 and 5 are considered to be in fair condition. NBI 4 or less are considered to be in poor condition. So what does this mean?
Jeff, let me ask a question about that. You have a huge experience with bridge preservation. How often do you believe it's important to visit each one of the structures to know if they're still on fair condition or poor condition or good condition? How often do you think that DOT engineers should go back to that structure and revisit them to see what changed? The 2 to 4 intervals, or
I think it's the interval that basically is for that particular bridge type. And I'll basically 2 years is the standby for Federal Highway. Giving you a little bit deeper dive, if you have a multi-girder bridge, let's say it's a pre-stressed pre-tension concrete girder bridge, they don't fail very easily. It's in really good condition. Then basically you could have it on a 4 year cycle or more. If a bridge, even that type of bridge, is down around say fair condition, particularly a 5, they wouldn't definitely have. They'd be back to a 2 year cycle. So I think you can trust that pretty well, because when the bridge reaches a certain lower level condition, the time between inspections will get smaller.
And just a follow-up question about that. When I think about any specific state with 20,000 bridges, how challenging it is to visit, let's say, if you have to visit every bridge every 4 years, we're talking about 5,000 bridges per year that you have to visit. How challenging it is for DOT engineers to make sure that they are inspecting all these 5,000 bridges every year.
Well, we have to inspect bridges before the last inspection was the anniversary of the last inspection. And so it's on a schedule, and Federal Highway holds you accountable for that. Now, the only thing that might get a reprieve on is if you had a major event like a hurricane or something like that, or an earthquake, and then basically they might give you a little bit of a grace period but they would expect you to handle that immediately. So this is something that DOTs get graded on, and it could affect our funding, so that we're not going to miss these inspection periods. None of the DOTs are going to miss it.
Fair enough.
So, as I was saying, bridge decks are defined as follows, and I went through that. And to give you a little bit more understanding of what these mean, this is also from Federal Highway Administration, and it's good to look at. So if you look at 9 and 8, excellent and good, very good condition, there's no repairs actions need to be taken. When you get down to 7, which is in good condition, minor maintenance is needed to maintain the bridge. 6, satisfactory condition, major maintenance is required. And 5, which is the turning point, which is fair condition, is basically minor maintenance for fair condition, for minor repairs may be needed. And when you go to 4, it's poor condition, which means you have to have major repairs. And you'll see that we do not want to use BridgeDECK on a deck that requires major repairs, unless the repairs are made and the condition of the bridge improves. So anything below this is not worth even talking about for what we're going to be discussing today. I think you all know this too, but I'm going to go through it because it's important. How BridgeDECK products work. BridgeDECK forms gel 1.5 to 3/4 of an inch below the top surface of the deck. The gel fills the pores and cracks in the concrete, and the gel effectively eliminates water and contaminants below that half inch and 3/4 inch below the surface of the deck slab. Without water and contaminants, corrosion can't occur in concrete or reinforcement. Actually, you need water, air, and contaminants, but you're only blocking water and contaminants. Air, you don't need much air for corrosion, and it's already locked in the deck slab, and it can probably get in through the bottom as well. I know it can. So without water and contaminants, corrosion can't occur in concrete or reinforcement. Now, concrete can deteriorate for various different reasons, but the real issue here is usually reinforcement. Water and contaminants reaches the reinforcing steel. The steel can rust, and it can cause scale, which swells and cracks the concrete. So that's the real problem for significant deck corrosion, where you start to see spalls and other things. Gel is periodically reapplied. If gel is periodically reapplied, the corrosion is significantly slowed or eliminated. Clients can choose to reapply at a higher or lower performing BridgeDECK product. And the predicted service life of the reapplication is independent from the previous application. So say you use Protector Plus, you get to 20 years, and you want to go to waterproofing agent, which is 25 years. The expected service life is going to be 25 years. And if you go down to Protector because you think the bridge is going to be demolished for a widening or something, you can expect a service life of 15 years. So let's talk about how I want this to be managed, or we think it should be managed. Bridges with a BridgeDECK of NBI between 6 and 9. If the NBI has not changed since the first application, reapply BridgeDECK in accordance with expected service life of original application. If the owner wishes to delay the reapplication of BridgeDECK when the service life is reached, you can do 2 things. You can take cores at a select locations to determine adequate presence of gel in matrix and patch with ACR, concrete patch, and repair. Alternatively, and a lot of people like this, you could use NDT, which is non-destructive testing for other, and there's several types. The ones that I'm most familiar with over here are ground penetrating radar, infrared thermography, or impact echo, or other appropriate methods, and they're developing them all the time and getting more sophisticated to determine the condition of the deck slab prior to reapplication. There is a problem with this. NDTs are evolving technologies, and you cannot always trust the results. So before you really go off and use one of these methods, you really need to validate, and the only way to really validate is to take a few cores. But then if you do that and you get it validated, you can cut down on coring, and owners don't like to core their decks so much. But I really don't see that as being coming into play, but some states may wish to do that. If BridgeDECK NBI drops down one numerical value, reapply 5 years before the end of the predicted service life, because you don't want to the whole idea is to stop any sort of corrosion. So for bridge decks with a NBI of 5, and this is the one that just before it goes to poor condition, reapply bridge deck 5 years before the end of the expected service life of the original application. If the owner wishes to delay the reapplication of the bridge deck when a service life of -5 years is reached, you do the same thing. You could take cores and you could take NDT. It's important to note when a bridge deck reaches an NBI of 4, it is in poor condition. Previously, FHWA, the classification for this condition state was structurally deficient. For some reason, Federal Highway felt as though poor condition was not as onerous sounding as structurally deficient. I don't necessarily agree, but they made that change, and we all know what that means anyway. Whether the public does or not, that's Federal Highway will be the best judge of that.
On your experience, how long it would take for a regular, if you don't do anything, any type of preventive maintenance or nothing like that, how long it would take for a new bridge to be on that, 5 mark? Do you think would take like 5-10 years, or would be closer to 25, 35 years to be 4 or less, or even on the NDI of 5 or something like that? How long that would take?
It really depends upon how well the bridge is constructed, the concrete mix design, and the condition the bridge is located in. I've heard when I first got started in this business, 25-year service life was considered to be the point for which deck slabs lasted. Now we do better than that now with improved concrete designs, but we're talking about maybe 40 to 50 years, and then we're talking about a potential deck replacement. So what you want to do is you don't want to get to the point of deck replacement. You want to get to the point where the bridge is in good shape and that the deck slab is, so you can keep on maintaining it to extend the service life, because it's very expensive to replace deck slabs. And even if you don't have to fully replace it, you'd have to do major repairs or partial deck replacements, which means you would have to remove the top layer of concrete surrounding the first layer of reinforcement. You'd have to go in there and restore that reinforcement and pour the deck. And obviously replacing it is a lot more than that, because you got to catch the concrete. It's more traffic control. You got to dispose. You got to put pans in, and then you got to put your reinforcing steel and pour it. So the idea is to try to avoid this as much as possible and maintain your decks. And BridgeDECK is an excellent product to help you do that. BridgeDECK with an NBI 4 or less. Reapplication of BridgeDECK is not recommended for bridges with an NBI of 4. And although we couldn't give any guarantees, if an agency just doesn't have the money and they want to do a quick fix and maybe buy a couple of years, they could try using BridgeDECK. I don't think it'll do much, but it might extend it a little bit of period of time. Reapplication is not recommended for bridge decks with an NBI of 3 or less under any circumstances. However, if you end up with a situation where you do some patching of decks, even a partial deck replacement, you can reapply that BridgeDECK product on the bridge, and you're going to get pretty good results out of that, because that you're dealing with, concrete that's in good condition. And that completes this presentation. Are there any other questions, Mario?
All right. So one of the, I think one of the main challenges is exactly when a DOT engineer is looking to his inventory and he's able to see that he has, the 20,000 bridges that I mentioned. And he realized that, okay, that's great. I have 20,000 bridges. Some are terrible, some are worse. And I have to do all this job. And guess what? Either I don't have the fund, so I don't have the money to do it. I don't have the time to do it. So as you have been doing that for, you did that for so long, what was your strategy on, how to, when you look to your inventory, where to start?
Well, Florida DOT was in a coastal environment, and that was the only area where we really had any corrosion. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to speak just in general for other states. The idea is that not to let your corrosion go too far, and because I did some other analysis on this, and for Peter Kessler some time ago, and I did an estimate. It costs about 1% the cost of the bridge to use Alchemco when you have a new construction. For a bridge that basically is already just applying it to it, comparing it to a partial deck replacement, it's 2% the cost of the entire bridge. And comparing it to full deck replacement, it's 4% the cost of the bridge. So if you go over there and you have a bridge that's supposed to be 20, 40 years old, and before you have problems, and you're monitoring it, and you maybe have some slight problems, but you do some slight patching, and you put the waterproofing agent on, that's a 65-year service life, 40 plus 20, 25. And you can continue doing that for the life of the bridge. Bridges are designed today to last 100 plus years, but in the old days, some of the older bridges are designed for 50, and there was a lot in my lifetime that was designed for 75 years. What a lot of agencies do is they'll use the worst to first concept, and you sort of have to do that to some degree because you have to go and replace your bad infrastructure. But any agency, and this has been coming on since I've been with in maintenance with the Department of Transportation. Started doing that job about 17 years ago. And there was a lot of discussion going on about deck preservation at that time because we knew that we were spending a lot of money. And getting some agencies out of the worst to first concept was a little challenging at first, but I think most states have it now. Spend a little money now to save a lot of money later. You have to have that thought, that view to the future. I mean, not everybody has it, but most people do.
This is a hard sell to the DOTs, when they're looking to, because my point is exactly, often when I'm talking with DOT engineers, I explain to them exactly, well, the sooner you do it, the better, because the longer, the more protected your structure is going to be. So if we're talking about, avoiding corrosion from happening, one thing is, we have a new structure, you protect the structure. And in this case, we're talking about the BridgeDECK technology, which is the technology that we produce. But the reality is that often I see that many DOTs, they don't do anything at all to new construction. They wait until they actually have a problem. And then, when this bridge is with the NBI of, 7, 8, or 9, often they don't do a lot of stuff. They wait until it's on not such a good condition to start doing something. So if you're, my point is that my feeling is that we sometimes it's a hard sell to convince, them to, well, let's use these to protect your structure, because the reality is that the sooner the better. Just like you're gonna go on vacation to the beach, so you're gonna use sunscreen before you are exposed to the sun. Otherwise, you're gonna have sunburn, and then it's gonna be harder to fix that. But if you use that before, it's gonna be better to protect your skin. I'm always thinking on, the new generation of DOT engineers. Some of them, they have been doing that for, 5, 10 years. They're still learning about all the challenges, because you cannot close the structure for for a long time, because that's going to bring a lot of traffic jam and a lot of headaches. They're always very concerned about safety. It's impressive that the more I talk with DOT engineers, they're really very concerned about safety, and that's it. So on your, as you have such a large experience with that, what do you think would, help them to understand that the sooner you do it, the better, and actually you're saving money. Even though you're spending money, you're saving a lot of money on the long cycle.
Well, I think in general, the arguments that we'd be making marketing with DOTs would attempt to do that, and I think that we could do that properly if we give enough technical data. The thing about states trying something new is that some states take it on faith. Some states would like to see other states that did the application. Some states kind of like my old state, Florida DOT. They like to have everything tested before they try anything, and before it becomes a common way of doing business. Now, part of the problem is not with the engineers, for the most part. It's really the engineers convincing their legislatures. Every budget that gets submitted to the legislature, it was called a legislative budget request, and you have to outline how you're going to spend the money. And sometimes it's a hard sell telling a legislature, "Hey, we're going to spend a small portion of our money on a new bridge." I said, "Why do you want to do that?" And with the argument that Florida DOT's been using with their legislature for years is that if you don't put oil in your car, right, your engine ultimately is going to fail, and you have to replace the engine, or you might have to have major engine work. But if you take care of your engine's going to last longer and run better, and you're going to have less problems overall. So I think that's a good analogy. I like that one myself.
I like that. Yeah, it's a good one.
So they've been doing that for years. And every time you get new legislators come in, the DOTs have to go out and educate them. Fortunately, I never had to make those arguments to the legislature. I've had some discussions in legislators in the past, and they know what they know, and it's hard to tell them anything different. But somehow Florida's been successful at doing this, and I think other states could try to do the same, should be doing the same thing.
And just out of curiosity, when we're talking about bridges in Florida, the challenges in Florida are completely different from the challenges in bridges in the Northeast, for example, where we have the salts from the icing agents and all of that expedites corrosion. But in Florida, as you guys are so close to the ocean, you guys have what type of inspection do you do underneath the bridge to see, any type of corrosion that's coming from the chlorides that are coming from the ocean?
Yeah, you make a very good point. However, bridges are inspected. The underside of bridges are inspected, not only for the deck, but for the framing. The substructures are inspected. If it's deep, they go in with divers. They'll send divers down to look at the foundation. So every aspect of the bridge is inspected very carefully. And they even probe around foundations to see if the soil is loose, because they want to know how effective the soil is surrounding the bridge. In Florida, we have three environments. We have slightly aggressive, moderately aggressive, and extremely aggressive environments. Slightly and moderately aggressive environments, you don't need to do much of anything because it just takes so long to corrode. We don't use de-icing chemicals and road salt, so we don't have much problems with those bridges. The ones in the salt water are different. We can have corrosion on the deck slab because salt air gets deposited on top of the deck slab. Often what's happening is the girders and the deck underneath are corroding faster, the substructures corrode, and those are the ones that need to have our attention. And one thing that BridgeDECK does, which helps all of this, is that a lot of products out there pour their product directly on top of the deck. We can spray our product on the vertical and the substructures of bridges underneath, and by capillary action, you're going to get protection. So there is a market in Florida for this. We just have to convince them our product is better than the other products.
Very good. Great. Well, Jeff, do you have any last comments before we wrap up this webinar?
No, anybody who wants to talk to me about these issues, they can give me a call at any time. I'll be happy to talk to you.
Outstanding. Great. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good day. Thank you.